Ooh, such nostalgic sounds for that one. For those of you who don't know what that's from, that is from 3D Space Cadet Pinball. Who remembers that? That was the free pinball game that came almost installed on almost every computer back in like the 90s and early 2000s. Man, we all would play that shit. It was fun. That was some fun. That was some fun times. But anyway, welcome back to Memory Lane. As this week our destination is. Oh, sorry about that. We had some sound problems. But anyway, welcome back to always the best shit for us here. Welcome back to Memory Lane. And this week our destination is pinball. No specific pinball, just pinball in general. Now I'm not going to talk about like every arcade kind of game. Like I'm not going to talk about air hockey. I'm not going to talk about uh skee ball, but I do want to talk about pinball because pinball has been around before arcades, before video games. And pinball still to this day we all know and recognize, and especially for some people who want to build the ultimate game room and have the ultimate gaming collection, some will have arcade machines like I do, some will have pinball machines, and some have both. Uh, so without further ado, we're gonna talk about pinball now. This one's gonna be a little bit different than normal. Like I have some facts here, but it's like I can't find the amount of money pinball makes because that's just like pinball goes back way before any of us listened to this shit was born. And so it's hard to get how much money pinball has accumulated over the time. And I might be able to find how much like the video game pinballs have made over the time, basically like the pinball machines that we all know and love. But like, there's so many variations, so many different pinball machines, so many different types of pinball, you know. And of course, there's pinball video games. So we're gonna kind of just get into some of the major facts here, talk about my favorite pinball games and memories, and not every single variant that's out there, but some of the heavy hitters that we might know or recognize, you know. Like when I said earlier, it's like this came out before any of us listened to this was born. Uh, pinball has been around as a game, let's just say as a game, since before World War II. All right, so we're talking like the 20s and 30s. None of us listen to this right now. We're born in them times. Okay, all right. I'm lucky if I have people born in the 70s listen to my shit right now. But like the mechanisms that go into pinball were created before any of us that are alive now were born. All right. It goes far as back as the late 18th century. All right. The late 18th century, that's when the spring launcher was invented. All right. So, in other words, we all know the spring launcher, right? That's how we pull the little thing back and shoot the ball up into the pinball machine. That's the spring launcher. That was created in the late 18th century. That's a fucking long time ago, all right? And by the year 1869, the spring launcher had become mainstream. Okay, now that was the new hot commodity. That was the new thing. That was the new tool or mechanism that was in a spring launcher. So they not only used it in for like entertainment purposes, but they used them in weaponry. They used them in tools and other mechanisms. You know, by 1931, coin operation was introduced. So now pinball has been a thing since the 1800s, and now by the 1930s, you now have to pay to play it. A couple years later, 1933, that's when pinball machines became electric, and that's when they had the bumpers introduced. So you know what the bumpers are. So if you're playing pinball, those bumpers are those bumps, obviously, on the board itself that the ball bounces off of. You know, not the part you control. Those are called flippers. All right, and we'll get to those. But the bumpers were invented in the early 30s, 1933, along with electronic mechanisms. So now you're able to plug it in and give it life. along with coin operation. Well, by 1947, the flippers were introduced. So now you can control the pinball machine. Now, instead of just shooting the ball into it, you can now keep the ball alive, bounce the ball back into the game, get more points. By 1970, pinball was brought into the electronic gaming, and it introduced the digital displays. So what that means, like the backdrop and all that other stuff. So when you play pinball machine and you got the big color backdrop and then the color board itself that you play on, those were introduced in 1970, along with it being brought into electronic gaming. So now it was the late, early 70s, so 1970s, when they started considering it as an arcade game. It's in arcades and whatever have you. It's like, oh, here's a pinball machine, go play it. And by the 80s and 90s, pinball becomes the cult classic of arcade gaming. Okay, It- and that's kind of where I'm gonna pick up with myself here. We all know pinball, and we all know pinball from the arcade. Okay, pinball is kind of one of the first things you think of when you think arcade gaming. Okay, even to this day, even though that some of the arcade games we have today, like if we go anywhere in like a movie theater, or some places that do have like indoor amusement parks, or even something like a Dave and Buster's, something like a restaurant that has an arcade to it. It's pinball is kind of always there, and it's evolved so much over the years. Like it's still same the basic, shoot the ball into the board and keep it alive with the flippers. But like the designs and then like the layouts and the blueprints of each design, like sure it's the same mechanism. You have that big elongated table, with the short backdrop that sticks up from the behind it, and the two buttons on the side and the spring launcher in the front. That's all stayed the same. But like the board itself, like okay, like some pinball machines have just a couple bumpers, some have like a whole bunch of bumpers. Some have dual flippers, like you have flippers at the bottom like normal, but then there's some that have flippers up in the middle, you know. And then there's virtual pinball. So it's still built like a pinball machine, but instead of an actual pinball and actual flippers, is a virtual pinball. So it's a screen essentially that you control. So it's now it's a video game. And then of course there's pinball video games. Like you can get the Gottlieb pinball collection on the PS2, you know, or you can get I think it's the Williams pinball collection. You can get that as well. Compilation. I think it's also on the PS2. I think these are on original Xbox as well. Maybe the PSP. I know the PS2 for sure. But I remember playing pinball for the first time. I was just a kid. I mean, a kid. Because pinball was everywhere. It was in bowling alleys. It was in movie theaters. It was in the arcades. It was in malls. It was at the laundromat. It was everywhere. And as a kid, I thought it was cool. Like it was a game that it didn't necessarily had a win or lose mechanism. It was just keep the ball alive as you can. Think about it as keepy uppy. You know what I mean? You know what I'm saying? Like don't let the balloon hit the floor, that type shit. Just keep it alive as long as you can. That's basically what pinball is. And when you're a kid, you love that. And the bright flashing colors and the vibrant, display, and then the noises it makes. It's so alive, it's so fun, it just draws you in. Like there's that. And then the first time I played a pinball video game was the sound you heard in the very beginning, the 3D Space Cadet pinball that almost every computer came with. You know, and what I mean by one of those free games, like how some computers come with games pre-installed, like Solitaire, Minesweeper. A lot of them had 3D Space Cadet pinball, and remember my grandparents had that, and I played the hell out of it. Played the hell of it in school. Oh, that was such a great game. Because it's just fun and addicting as real pinball is, and pinball is so addicting to where like it's just more of a high score based kind of game. It's not like there's levels to this shit. There's not like it's two player or nothing. It's just trying to get the high score. And sure there was some games like arcade games, especially the early ones like really all of them. And I was gonna say like asteroids and stuff, but really all arcade games was about the high score. But like pinball was strictly the high score. Like there was no level two, there was no boss battle, there was no multiplayer, there was no three lives. You know what I'm saying? Like just keep the ball alive. You lose the ball, oh, put another quarter in, get another ball. It, I've even seen like tabletop pinball where it's like it still had the same build, the elongated table with the display in the back, but it's like super short. You can carry it with one hand, because it's meant for a tabletop. Put on top of a counter or something and play it. I personally have not played like the PlayStation and you know versions of video game pinball like the Gottlieb collection. I haven't played any of that. I haven't seen any gameplay of it, but it can't be terrible, can it? It's pinball. You know, pinball was definitely like a pinnacle of entertainment because not only did it just only require simple instructions and simple tools, but it was only meant for one person, and it was simple. It was easy. You know what I'm saying? Like you just shoot the ball up, get your points, and then try it again when you lose the ball. There was no focus really until the flippers came in. Then the focus was make sure you don't miss that ball. But other than that, there really was no concentration. There was no stress to like a video game. No rage quit. No nothing. It's just all right. Let's see if I can get it. Oh well. Like it's probably a game. I've never seen anyone get pissed off at pinball. I've seen a lot of people get pissed off at video games. I've seen people rage over Mortal Kombat and Pac-Man and Street Fighter, NBA Jam, but never pinball. Never pinball. As I said earlier, there was various variants. And when I mean various, I mean there was a lot of different pinball machines. Like it's like I said, it's all had the same build, so it all has the same base and blueprints to create. Just a different themes. And there was a lot of licensed ones, okay? Who remembers the Indiana Jones pinball machine, the Iron Man pinball machine, the Kiss pinball machine, where the backdrop is all four of their faces. You know, I believe there was a Simpsons one, and I believe there was a video game themed one. I can't remember if it was Mario or Sonic. It had to be one of them. It was a big name like that, but I can't remember it off the top of my head right now. But it was so many. I think there was a Jurassic Park one, and there was I think there was like a horror themed one. Like a Friday the 13th or Nightmare on Elm Street one. I think. Uh, Maybe Halloween has one as well. Michael Myers. I think there's another. I can't think of this. I think there's another metal based one. Like I think there's a Metallica one. I'm not entirely sure on that, but like it just goes on and on and on. Of course, you have your classics, like your basic pinball with the bright, vibrant colors, the red and blue and white lights, and then you have some like generic ones, like here's an outer space themed one, here's a beach themed one, here's a sports themed one. Like this one's designed like a hockey rink, this one's designed like a football field, this one's designed like a soccer field. Like it just carries on from that. And pinball kind of, at least in my opinion, just on how it's built, I kind of inspired a lot of other games similar to like bubble hockey and foosball. How you just have minimal control, one ball, and just you know play till the ball's gone and you get the points. But that, I want to say definitely pinball was definitely a pioneer of entertainment and gaming. Considering the fact that it wasn't considered a video game, it was still in arcades. It was still considered a game. You put money in to play, and it kept you or your kids busy for a while you were shopping or just needed to blow off some steam after school or work one day. Like it was in that same category, and that's why they put it in the arcades. Like, well, fuck it, it's a game. It costs a quarter or two to play. Let's put it with the rest of it. So it's no surprise that this ended up in arcades, and how it just kind of got into the world of video gaming and stuff. Like I said, with the virtual pinball and the pinball collections on consoles, and then of course the computer pinball games like the 3D Space Cadet. It goes on how far pinball has gone. I would love to personally own my own pinball machine. You know, it might be virtual pinball because it's smaller. You know, takes up less space because them old school hefty fucking pinball machines. Not only are they more expensive, but they're big, man. They are big. For those of you who never played on an actual pinball machine, the old classic vintage ones from the 80s and stuff, like they're fucking huge. You can lay on them. You can lay across it like it's a bed. You can just lay on them. Like they're big, man, and they're loud and take up space. Don't want that in my house. I got enough noise in my house, but I still think it'd be cool to own one. I have no idea, because the arcade machine I have is from Arcade One Up. I don't know if they made a pinball machine. I know they made a bunch of other arcades. I know they made a claw machine. Arcade One Up has their own claw machines. I saw those. Those are pretty cool. But I don't know if they made their own pinball machines. I haven't seen them, but that doesn't mean they haven't made them. I have to get a little bit deeper in that. But I would love to own a pinball machine. You can't go wrong with pinball, man. I mean, there's even more like video, like Sonic Spinball. It's a Sonic pinball game on the Sega Genesis, and it's one of the best-selling Sonic games on the Genesis. It's on every Sonic collection that came out from the Genesis. It's on the Sega Genesis Classic Mini. I think it's on the Sega Genesis uh thing on Nintendo Online if you have a Switch. And there's Pokemon Pinball that I have on the Game Boy Advance. That's starting to go up in price because it's fucking Pokemon. But even Pokemon Pinball, you know, like it's just the impact that this had on gaming. This started back in the late 18th century, all the way up to 2026. It's it's earned its flowers. It's showed its colors. It's earned its antlers, man. It's got its antlers. I definitely put it in like the top, you know, the Godfathers of gaming type shit. I would definitely put pinball up there. Like I said, it's not necessarily a video game, that if you want to split it up that way, then sure, it has its own playing field, but it was up there with the arcades. It was in there at the same time Pac-Man was and Dig Dug and Frogger, Asteroids, Space Invaders. It was in the same places you would see all that stuff in the bowling alleys. Mom and dad's playing bowling. If the kids were done bowling, uh, you know, your parents will still bowl and the kids will go right there and play pinball. You know, the laundromat. Here's 2 quarters. Go leave me alone while I get the laundry done. At the grocery stores. Here's 2 quarters. Leave me alone while I get our dinner. You know, it was kind of it was kind of like that. It's like, oh, there's an arcade game over there's a pinball machine over there. Mama, can I have a quarter? Here, shut up. Go there. Go leave me alone. Now, I can't be wrong about that. Come on, people. Be honest. If you grew up in the 80s, maybe even in the 90s, you know, you you know, mom or dad gave you a quarter or two just to shut up. Like, here, you know what? You're gonna bother me. Go play this game while I go get the groceries. Leave me alone. It may sound a little esoteric, but that was just the way of the times back then. I I personally wanted to do this because I just didn't want to leave it out. In my personal opinion, you can't talk about arcade gaming and not bring up pinball. Like I said, sure, there's some other big games, some big classics like air hockey and skee ball and stuff. I'm not going to talk about those, because those can go in a category with pinball, but pinball goes in both video games and that because they're around. Pinball's been around for so damn long. They've been in the same room with both generations and both technologies and just everything. Like pinball has seen technology evolve before its own eyes. You know, we just sat here watching the pinballs machine evolve. The pinballs machine watched us evolve. Now there's virtual reality. You put the video games in your eyes and play it. you know, versus actually going somewhere to play games now. You want to play pinball? All right, turn on your computer, turn on your PlayStation, play pinball. It's different. But the fact that pinball was always there, you know, I brought this up on my episode of Pac-Man. It's like Pac-Man was always there, and he's still there. Still to this day, you can get a Pac-Man compilation on the Switch or the PlayStation, or I don't know if the Xbox has it, but I know the other two do. And play it on the computer. Pinball's the same way. You want to play pinball? They still got pinball video games. You can still go somewhere and find a pinball machine fully operational. Put a quarter in and have your fun for a few minutes. Like it's still there, and it's always gonna be there, just like it's always been there. It ain't going nowhere. It's just evolving with the times. I think it's one of those games that are considered timeless, just like Pac-Man, just like hell, maybe even Tetris. Like a lot of those games, people are gonna sit and just chill and vibe with. Galaga as another one. It's just I don't see why I can't talk about this. It's a game. It's retro. It's in the arcades. A lot of you grew up with it. A lot of you was your first game you've ever played. And sure as shit, I'm going to talk about it. And so I did. You know, I didn't plan on this being a super long episode. I just really wanted to talk about pinball. Like, we all have our favorite pinball. I know there's so many more variants. Like, I know there's probably a Batman one, there's probably a Superman one, a Spider-Man one. Like, every superhero has one. Every comic book character has one. Every major TV show. I think there's a Friends one, a Full House one. Oh, I don't know about a Full House one, but I think there's a Friends one. You know, maybe every hit major movie. Like, I don't know if Men in Black has one, but like I said, Iron Man had one. Indiana Jones has one. Kiss. I think Metallica had one. I don't think Ozzy did. Like I said, there was horror theme ones. There was generic theme ones. There was ones that were kid theme. I think there's a SpongeBob one. It's has tethered and attended to every audience, whether you're a boy or girl, a man or a woman, a teenager, adult, child. If you're an elder, like this is a game your grandparents can play because this game was before your grandparents. Your grandparents grew up with pinball. Your parents grew up with pinball. You grew up with pinball. It's always been there, and it hasn't gone anywhere. The whole reason you don't see as many as you do now is because you don't see very many arcades, period. You know? Like, there's some barcades you can go to, bar arcades, and, like, they have pinball machines and stuff. But, like, actual arcades that are just open to the general public, whether you're a kid or an adult, they're not around anymore. And if they are, they're fucking in the shadows. They're most definitely in the shadows. I mean, every once in a while, you'll come across, like, some of those big box stores big box department stores will have a couple stuff on display, like a Costco or a Sam's Club, or even like a Target or Walmart, and they'll have stuff like that on display. Like they have an arcade machine up, or a pinball machine put up, or even like something like a fucking pool table. Like they have that stuff on display. Like I think it's just cool how there's just some people who just don't want this stuff to die off because there's no reason for it to. Pinball, I don't think should die off. I don't think it should. It should always be there. It should outlast everything. Okay. It's the cockroach of video gaming. Okay. No matter what you do, you're not gonna get rid of it. Okay. It'll survive nuclear blast. It'll survive being stomped on, being sprayed, just like cockroaches do for some fucking reason. You know, Pinball is gonna be like that. Pinball is gonna keep coming back. Okay. It's like a bad itch. You know, but it's a bad itch you like. It's an itch you like to scratch because you like pinball. Pinball's good. Roaches aren't, but you know. I don't know. I don't know how I feel about that comparison, but you know what I'm saying, though, right? For people who's ever lived with roaches or know with someone who had roaches, you know that they're everywhere and they're hard to get rid of. Well, they're hard to kill. Let me just say that. You can get rid of them. Keep your shit clean. Ugh. But I really just wanted to do this episode to kind of give pinball the flowers it deserves, man. After this, we're gonna be talking about more big topics, more to bigger games, more to fan favorites. But I could not just move on without talking about pinball. And if you remember, I said before, every 5 to 10 episodes, I'm gonna talk about some more storytelling type stuff. This is episode 35, and we're talking about pinball. Pinball storytelling. We've all played pinball, man. There's no way in hell you're listening to this and be like, "What's pinball?" I don't know. You know what the fuck pinball is, stupid. You know, you know. There's just there's no way. Even if you never played it, you know what the damn pinball machine looks like. You know the concept and the gist of it. Shoot the ball into the board, keep it alive with the flippers. The longer you keep it alive, the more stuff it bounces off of, whether it be the bumpers, the flippers, the loops and the hoops and all this stuff that pinball machines have, and to rack up your points. Just get the high score. Just get the high score. But again, I can't do this enough. I haven't. If I were to sit down and just to go back with how many variants there are, if I were to play every single variant of pinball that has come out since it hit, the mainstream in like the what did I say, Kemp? When all that stuff, the 70s up until now, I'd probably be dead. Not not even halfway through. I'll probably get a quarter of the way through of playing every pinball at least once, and I'm gonna die because it's fucking. There's so many of them. There's so many. There's tabletop ones. There's virtual ones. There's licensed ones. There's random ones. There's God damn video games. There's pinball goes a long way. Pinball goes a long way, and it came a long way and deserved to come a long way. But that's all I'm gonna say without going in circles, because I already have. I already went in circles. But anyway, play some pinball. This is making me want to play some pinball now. I just might do that. So before I leave, I'm gonna give my plugs. Thank you for listening. Gaming Memory Lane, my oh so professional podcast here. Be sure to come back next week where we talk about a game that kicked off probably one of the most important and most recognizable franchises in gaming history. Can you take a guess what that game is? No, if you can't, you got to find out till next Sunday. Be sure to follow my socials. Definitely follow my socials, especially now. Instagram, Facebook, at Kevin Gill Gaming. I am planning something big for my gaming future. And it's something I've been wanting to do. Something that I feel like I can do. And it's something that I feel confident in doing. But you got to follow my socials to figure out what it is. Because the people on Facebook and Instagram are going to see it first before the podcast will. And maybe even YouTube. I don't think YouTube's going to see it first either. Be sure to follow my Reddit, r/gaming memory lane. Another way to keep up with the podcast, I post my full playlist of games. If I'm doing a Let's Play on YouTube and I finish a game, I'll post a full playlist of the entire series on there. And just another way to kind of get involved with the community and trying to build my own community in there, And then shout out to my YouTube, Kevin Gill Gaming. Over 100 subscribers, getting a lot of love over there, man. I love it. I love it. Not just the views, but like the likes, the shares, the comments. Like it's just there's the community. There's my community right there, man. And also YouTube is just another way to listen to the podcast. All right, everybody. Well, again, thank you for listening. Be sure to follow my socials if you want to find out what I'm doing. If not, you're going to have to wait until I release everything at once. All right, y'all. I'm out.